This is First Contact, Stories of the Call Center.
In the first software that I built, one of the comments I would get back, I was just measuring what somebody was saying. And so people would ask me, well, can it measure the ums and the ahs and the pauses? And I said, you're basically trying to measure how they say something. Mm-hmm. And so I found a company out of, let's see, it's called Beyond Verbal. And they developed a tool that measures the emotion analytics in your voice. And so I was able to, through an API, plug that into the first software that I built. And it was giving you 11 different emotional categories and then putting you in from 0 to 100% energy, balance, and I'm trying to think the other one. I'll think of it in a minute. But so basically I created a color-coded system that as soon as you were done with that simulation, you would see not only what you said, did you say the right words, but did you say it in a way that was expected for this type of conversation? So the problem I ran into that was, that was kind of the sexy part of the software.
It sounds cool.
Like, ooh, everybody wants to know what they are like, right? We all want, what am I? We want to do all these personality profiles and things like this. So what I ran into though was, oh, it shows that you're anxious, or it shows that you have low energy, or it shows you have too much energy, like you're overselling something. So how do you then coach someone to tailor their voice into the proper tonality for that type of conversation? And what I found was it really didn't help me leverage deeper into the organization. It didn't help me leverage them doing something with that data. They really didn't do anything with the data. It was kind of like a nice to know. But in my observation, it was like, well, I don't know if I'm qualified to teach you how to change your emotional state. It's like you're having a bad day, fix it. You can't do that. But what I did find was I did some additional research from a company out of Texas called Quantified Communications. And they do a lot of research around leadership, speaking and how they speak and the tonality of their voice. And one of the things that they study was Walter Cronkite versus Anderson Cooper. Who sounds more trustworthy? I thought, okay. And, sometimes I have to explain to the audience who Walter Cronkite is, depending upon the age. But what they found was that they had differences in their harmonic tonality. So they actually scientifically measured it. But the one thing they measured, which to me, every single person could probably do, a flip of a coin, is he said that Walter Cronkite sounded more trustworthy, not because of just the tonality of his voice, but because he spoke slower.
Interesting.
Think about it. Anderson Cooper kind of talks like this, he fires out the question, like that. But Walter Cronkite was slower in speak. And so I further read into that. And basically, when you're speaking slower, you kind of exude a little bit more confidence. You don't, if you're speaking faster, just like think about music. So I compared music and voice quality. So when the music's playing, the violins are up really high, something exciting, you're exciting. But if you're playing a cello or something that's lower, it's maybe a slower, more serious scenario going on. So just like music, think about how our voices, when we speak in a higher tone, we're at an excited level of our voice and our emotional state. If we're speaking in a lower tone, we're speaking in a more calm, confident, more serious state. And so, just think of that, so I try to, pass that along to, I've done a lot of webinars on how your voice can make or break the sale and share all these different examples of just you can emotionally engage in someone just by the power and the tone of your voice versus the words. And Maya Angelou said, people may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel.
Yeah, great quote.
Yeah, so there's a lot of scientific research around the tonality and the way that you speak. And I give a lot of examples in that webinar around, how you can change the way that you're speaking to change the environment and to try to change the outcomes that are happening.
Do you see a lot more work in that area that the products and services you offer will eventually circle back on and dive deeper into, or do you feel that that in particular area is still important, but maybe not a core focus of the current system or product offered?
I think there's a lot of research going around to sentiment analysis right now. And I think sometimes that gets a little misguided because there's a lot of interpretations around like the word TO, TWO, TOO. It's like, okay, well, when you're using it in this context of this tone or whatever. So the one thing I liked about Beyond Verbal is theirs was a true biometric feedback. And they had studied millions and millions of voice profiles. So it didn't matter what country you lived in, what language you spoke,
What accent you had.
yeah, what accent you have. And so they actually are now going into the medical field. So they're actually helping to try to diagnose certain chronic illnesses if they're, getting worse because of somebody's voice starts to display characteristics in it that indicates there's something going on with their health. Because I think they ran into the same scenario I did. It's like, yeah, great. I told you in an enterprise environment that your voice sounds like this, your emotional state is X. Where they really should have used it was in measuring the customer's voice in real time so that I could calibrate the way that I interact with you. That's where I see the benefit of emotion analytics playing out in B2B environments where, I'm taking a call from you and I can tell you're stressed. You may not necessarily express it right away, but if I can somehow get an indicator, that would help me learn how to interact with you and show empathy based upon the state of which you're in. But the challenge they were still having is I needed 12 seconds of voice data. And, you might say, hi, hello. That's not going to be 12 seconds of voice data.
Yeah.
So I think there's room for improvement there.
Yeah, and it sounds like if there's any type of speech going on through an IVR that may be able to, take that information and give you enough data and then maybe route you to the right place, that may be useful in that context. But because everything you're doing isn't in production, right? Everything you're doing is simulations outside of production environment.